Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of a Frugal Athlete podcast. Today, we got a very special guest, Jared Kleinstein. He is the founder of Fresh Tape Media and also the founder of Gondola. He's a I say serious, but I meant to say serial entrepreneur, um, someone that's well known across the sports business space. And I'm excited to have him on because of how he can talk about his journey and how what he does and how his services help athletes, long after they're playing and while they're playing as well. But first and foremost, Jared, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic. I look a little pasty, but it's the lighting. I promise. I've been working on the tan, but I'm feeling good.
It's great to hear it. First and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're a busy man.
I'll be honest. I have meetings in like an hour, and this is way more fun. So I'm stoked to be on the podcast.
Most definitely. So real quick, give us a rundown of how you got to where you are, because you're someone that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting until recently, but I have been in contact with a lot of the things that you do. So talk about, how you got to where you are and then what you're currently doing now.
For sure. So I went to college in St. Louis at Wash U until 2009 when I graduated. And I was obsessed with sports my whole life. Made a sports TV show with my friends in college. That was probably the career path that I was really stoked to go down. So I went down the obvious route to get to sports media by working in real estate. I worked at a real estate tech company in New York called Street Easy. If you've never lived in New York, you probably haven't heard of it. But if you lived in New York, it is the main way people find apartments. So I was there for 7 years, from like my sophomore year of college all the way through 2014. We were acquired in 2013 by Zillow. I was head of strategic partnerships. So I managed all of our relationships with the real estate community at that point, and went from there to Vine, RIP, pour one out. So somehow found a job as the head of sports at Vine, and managed all of our relationships to all the sports leagues and teams and media companies. So when Vine shut down in 2006, it was October 27th, 2016, when we all found out we were, jobless, but fully shut down in 2017. When it shut down, I was trying to figure out what to do, and enough former colleagues and former clients said, like, you should start your own thing. And I, despite, having sort of an entrepreneurial spirit most of my life, it wasn't like it wasn't like I was dying to do it. Like, I hated working for the man. Like, some entrepreneurs are like, oh, I'll never work for a big company. I'm like, I loved it. Free food was great. Benefits were great. I made great friends. I made great friends at Zillow and Twitter. So I got no beef with big companies, but it just, enough people said that I should start my own thing that I kind of trusted them and thought that it could be fun. And that's how I started Fresh Tape Media in January 2017. Been running it ever since, growing the team from me in the back of my house to employees in the back of my house to employees in an office. And now we're here at our headquarters in Denver. And we launched Gondola, which was supposed to be just Fresh Tape admin, as like a little fun data product we built for ourselves. Spun that off into its own company, and publicly launched it in February of this year.
No, it's amazing. Real quick, when it comes to, making that transition into sports, I know because we talked offline about it and I got some, background information. Talk about that jump from, working in real estate to sports and how you kind of bet on yourself and, the power of networking.
For sure. Well, I've never actually got a job in my life off of an application. Like, I've applied for hundreds of jobs. I didn't get a yes on a single one. I hardly got second interviews. I don't know, like, what, maybe I just had a poorly formatted resume. I don't know. Any job I've ever got was from relationships and networking. Mm-hmm. So when I was at Street Easy, the one thing I didn't mention, I started a sports related meme while I was at Street Easy. So that kind of put me on the map as far as in the sports world-ish, but it was just a fun side thing while I had my job halfway through it in 2011. So when I got when I was thinking about leaving Zillow, a friend of mine at Vine, like one of my sister's best friends said, let's talk about Vine. I didn't actually know this at the time, but it was my sister logged into his email. She was just encouraging it. And he didn't know that she was going to hit send, but I guess he okayed it. And in the interview process, I clicked really well with the Vine team. And they said, if you could focus on anything, what would you want to focus on? Like the job wasn't even head of sports. It was a content partnerships job. And I said, sports. And they said, perfect. Ginger doesn't want to do sports. You could do sports. So it was pretty much just that Ginger was more focused on other partnerships. That's how I got the head of sports at Vine job. Like I didn't deserve it. If they'd put up the job as head of sports at Vine, they would have given it to like somebody from ESPN or somebody with like real experience in the sports industry. So that shift was just a dream come true. And at first, nobody at Twitter understood why I was the one who was in charge of it. I had no creds or relationships. And then, 2.5 years later, I'd built up enough relationships with the sports leagues and teams and broadcasters that I felt like I truly had created like a community that I cared about. And, the people that I worked with at Twitter on the sports team are still some of my best friends in the world. So I'm really lucky.
That's what it's all about. But, you did have experience that I'm sure you translated over. You talked about being head of partnerships at Zillow or StreetEasy that got acquired by Zillow. And then, you have a strong enough network where you never had to technically apply for a job. So, for people in the sports industry, whether it's athletes looking to, expand on their network or someone in the sports business space, what would be your like kind of playbook as it pertains to developing a partnership or relationship?
Some things are about repetition and time. Like you can make the best impression on somebody in 5 minutes and they can think you're the coolest person ever and then never speak to you ever again. But if you connect with people, but then keep connecting with them, and both from social media relationships to like having relatively consistent calls and whatnot, but also just like being at the same stuff together. Like there's a whole community of people that are always at Super Bowl media, like Radio Row. It's writers from around the country and around the world. It's people from media companies, from tech companies, and sports agents, and you just see people, the same people for years, and there's the sense of familiarity. I'll give you a great example of this. There's somebody at the NBA who always runs the floor at All-Star. Mm-hmm. And he's like, when the players are going from station to station, this guy, he is in charge of making sure they get to the right place. And, I'm a 5'11" Jewish guy. I don't command the room very well, but this guy does. And at first I was like, so when I went to our first All-Star game, probably in 2015, I was like, oh, he is so much cooler and more important than me and intense. And then you see him 1 year later and it's a little bit of, hey, how you doing? I remember you from last year. And then, oh shoot, 2 years in a row. And now it's family. Now you've seen some of these we've been to 7 straight All-Star games, and I get excited to see him as a human. And it's not because I did any special thing. It's not because I followed any kind of like rules of networking. It's that you get to spend time with people in the same spaces and you treat them with love and respect, and then it becomes family. So
no, I like that piece of advice, because I think a lot of times when people talk to me about it, it's like you have to be top of mind. And if you're not in those same spaces, you can't be top of mind. It's like, wait, where do I know you from? It's like, oh no, every year at the All-Star game, you see the gentleman on the floor commanding the stage. That's a great tip for not only athletes, but also anyone that's looking to get into the sports business space.
There's also like one tip that I actually taught my mom this tip. You'd think it would go the other way around because she saw me pretty much everything else in my life. But when you don't remember somebody, they don't need to know that. Like, I'm not saying I forget anybody. I have a pretty good like facial memory, but like there are times in the world where you go to a Super Bowl a year later and you're like, hey, what up? The last thing you want to do is say, hi, I'm Jared. Like they're just like, yeah, we met 6 years in a row at Super Bowls. What are you doing? Yeah. Like you can figure out who somebody is, but like, just because you don't remember their name, like just that's probably rule number one. My mom once forgot my friend's girlfriend's name, and she goes, "Hi, I'm Joanne," and the girl's like, "We've met like 4 times," and that's like, to me, it's just like, just avoid that, and you're okay.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Their name. I think you met them before. That would be a great. I would actually pay for that.
Same here. Like a lot, like more money than I would want to admit. But yeah.
All right, let's talk about, because I didn't know if you wanted to touch base on it, but you mentioned the thing that you started on the side, and if you don't mind me sharing, it's Tebowing. Talk about from the standpoint of like, because you're a serial entrepreneur, like your profile is crazy. You started different things and been very successful at it. Talk about it from the standpoint of like having a job, but also doing something that you're passionate on the side, whether it's as a passion or side hustle or something where maybe to showcase yourself in a different sector.
I think that the barriers to entry to start a company or to come up with an idea in 2022 are lower than in the history of the world, right? If you go to the 1800s and you want to start a company, you're thinking about like, I'm going to sell coffee. You have to find beans. You have to find a store. You have to find, customers. There's all these different things. The barriers to entry to start a company in 2022 are like, do you have an idea? Cool. Do you have like a couple late nights that you're willing to work? Great. Go for it. Come up with something. And that actually Tebowing was the first LLC I'd ever opened, like on a personal level. And it's like having business ideas in today's day and age when it comes to everything from the way e-commerce setups work to the way that setting up a website and setting up everything to be so automated for you. So I think that it taught, like starting something while I had a full-time job, taught me that it didn't actually have to disrupt it too much. Like also my boss at the time was super supportive, probably because he knew I wasn't really going to quit Street Easy, like my dream, like a job that I was like, I'd call it a dream job just because it's not like I spent my whole life wanting to work in real estate tech, but I loved everything about what we were building and I loved my team. And like, that's actually a piece of advice, sorry, that I give people is when they're looking for their first jobs or whatnot, don't judge the product or the end result of what your company is trying to build as much as judge the people you get to work with. Cause that's so much more important. But I felt supported to take some time. It didn't really I made sure that I wasn't doing it that much during work hours. I, took some PTO when I needed to. And I think that it's the kind of thing that if people are scared to start something because they have a full-time job right now, like the barriers to entry are too low. The excuses are weaker than ever before to not do it. I encourage it. As long as you don't work for like a big tech company that will say that if you use your computer, then they're going to, take ownership over your product, which I actually have never heard of actually happening, but it's a rumor.
So what advice would you have for, athletes in this day and age that are, looking to be athlete entrepreneurs, while they're playing instead of waiting after their career's over? Do you have any tips that you did or things that where you can balance, a full-time job or, putting your major focus on the main thing, but also making time for your passion outside of the main thing?
For sure. So I think the interesting thing about where athletes are positioned nowadays is most of them have built-in audiences and following, right? So an average NFL player probably has anywhere from 50 to 100,000 followers on Instagram. If you told a brand that they had a 50,000 follower account, which is not huge for an NFL player. If you told them they had a 50,000 follower account, they'd have a whole social team working on it. They'd be figuring out how to monetize it. They'd have an organic social strategy. They'd have a paid social strategy. So I'd say the first thing is utilize your social audience, both from a monetization perspective and make money off of it, even if it feels like small potatoes. Even if you're saying, my contract is $6 million a year, why would I care to make $10,000 on a social post? It's too much. It's not worth my time. It sets a standard where you can start establishing value from your social channels and more brands are willing to pay more money. So by the time you retire, you have enough of a flow of income from your branded social content that you're in good shape. Also, people think that like they're going to be called a sellout if they promote too much stuff on their social channels. That is completely in the past. Like most athletes are posting a ton of branded content, and as long as they don't like, promote unsalted cashews, even though they're allergic to cashews. I'm sorry, I just saw unsalted. I just like looked down and saw it.
I was like, great analogy.
Like as long as it's not a stupid partnership and you'd be willing to tell anybody that you work with this brand, like people don't care anymore. And mix in your personal content in between so that people don't think you only post that branded content. But I just think that the biggest opportunity would be turn your social presence into something that's more of a business than it is right now. I think that the biggest trend you see with athletes on the really high power athletes is starting their own production companies, right? You see it with Russell Wilson. You see it with Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. They all have these amazing production companies they're starting. And it's not just because production companies make money. It's because they're owning their content and they're able to manage sort of like what goes out and not just make money on publishing the content, but on creating it too. So I think that start from monetizing your content and creating a great social profile, and then evolve towards running your own production.
No, I love that. And great podcasting, by the way, because this is a great segue to what you do currently with Fresh Tape Media. So talk about that. Obviously, you started kind of by the push of your close friends and coworkers, and since then it's grown into a media empire. But what exactly do you guys do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So Fresh Tape is a creative production company. We're a cool hybrid between a creative agency and a production company. So some of our clients think of us as a creative agency. They ask us for concepts. They want strategy. They want anything from ideation to production support. Some people treat us like a production company. They just say, hey, come film this. We just need videographers and editors. We know what we want. We just want you to film it. So that hybrid of part agency, part production means that no day is the same. Every day is completely different. It means that our projects range from a set build for an all-star game to a video game created for the Pro Bowl to a content series filmed for an Olympic team. It really just, it makes every day completely unique. And if anybody says, what are your normal days like? I just say like, there's no such thing as a normal day. Every day is just new and cool and different. So.
No, that's amazing. So can you give us like an example of, a campaign with an athlete? Because I think a lot of athletes want to learn, what's under the hood when it comes to, you see a concept and they do the commercial, but take us through the process of, you talked about building the concept and the ideation and, all the steps leading to the execution.
Sure. So one fun example is we partnered up with a guy named Gabe Landeskog. He's the captain of the Colorado Avalanche. He is a fantastic hockey player, but he's also a great personality. And he built a relationship with some folks at Anheuser-Busch, and we got to work on some content series for social, promoting via various Anheuser-Busch brands. And the fun part was that it was, some with Stella, some with Bud Light, and we got to tailor concepts based on who the client was, or on what the brand was that we were focusing on. So Bud Light could be, Stella could be more classy, at a dinner table type of stuff. Bud Light could be a bit more like magic or, spraying a bottle with a hockey stop. But we ended up, playing pond hockey with this guy, with Gabe. And it was, the kind of thing where he was on an element that he's comfortable with, just making great content. His responsibility was have fun, play hockey, do his thing. We try not to rely too heavily on acting so that the pressure isn't on memorizing lines. It's not memorizing like how to do things. It's mainly about just showing off joy in the content.
Yeah. And so for athletes that you guys have worked with or athletes that you guys continue to work with, what are some things that they can do to better position themselves for opportunities with brands, because there's big money in this space, but sometimes it's almost top heavy because of, I don't want to say the lack of athlete creativity, or just the lack of knowledge in how they can get in front of some of these organizations.
For sure. So some athletes have marketing representation where they work with agencies that are dedicated to marketing, not their contracts, right?
Yeah.
They have their contract person, and then they have their marketing agency. If you have that position, then the agencies, you can push them for like, hey, here's some brands I'm really interested in. Here's people I already have talked to. This person, somebody from Gatorade reached out to me. Somebody from, Bud Light reached out to me. So I think people don't realize that. I don't think agencies are as territorial about relationships as they are excited about partnership opportunities. So if an athlete hears from a brand, they shouldn't be scared because, oh, my agent handles it. They should put the agent in touch and let the agent deal with all the logistics, let the agent deal with all the, details that are needed to get something created. So I think the first thing is just like get out there, talk to people, create relationships, and then be willing to pass it on to the people that you need to on your staff. If you don't have a marketing agent, the PAs actually provide pretty good support when it comes to contracts. We work with athletes that don't have marketing representation. So the NHL PA, NFL PA, they can provide documentation and contracts that will make the partnerships official. So don't be scared to create something and just put the pressure on the PA. Like, y'all paid crazy dues. So
that's great advice, because I feel like a lot of athletes don't take advantage of the resources available to them. So
sure.
I think you might have been one of the first guests to even suggest that when it comes to, from a marketing perspective, everyone just thinks contract.
Sure. Also, look at the PA contracts, like have a friend who's a lawyer, or have your standard agent or your primary agent review it, make sure it looks clean. But take some agency over your own relationships. I think that'd be really, I think that's really valuable.
How do you feel about, obviously I'm obviously touchy subject, but every rejection leads to redirection. If Vine doesn't close, you probably don't start these businesses. But from the standpoint of short form content now, being as popular as it is, how do you feel about that in today's climate?
I'm obsessed with it. I think that the funniest thing about where short form content is now is that it hasn't changed a bit in years. It's just how the vehicles have changed. Driving them hasn't. So when I gave presentations at Vine, I would say things like, people's attention spans are shorter than ever, and you have to create content that's tailored for your audience. And branded content should feel like it was good enough to be published natively and organically, even if the brand wasn't paying. And we all said the same thing about short form content all these years. The difference is TikTok's awesome, and Reels and Instagram and everything else that they're building is great. And there's more funny video content on Twitter than ever before. So Vine walked so all these places could run, right? Yeah. We were building tools on Vine to add music to your content near the end of Vine. And that, look what that became. TikTok is built on music, and it defines the music industry. Half of the Grammys the other day, went to people that got their start on TikTok. It's wild.
Yeah. So if you don't go viral on TikTok, then, from a music standpoint,
TikTok doesn't need to be you lip syncing and dancing. You could, I have 40,000 TikTok followers, and it's because I published some stupid videos of me in Japan, and I published some videos at the Super Bowl with the D'Amelios. It's not like you have to be a certain type of creator to succeed on TikTok. And NFL players or NBA players may think oh, I don't want to be on TikTok, I have to do this. You can literally publish a video of you and your teammates goofing around in the locker room, and it will hit the right audience on TikTok. So that's it. Put it all out there.
If you had to choose a social platform to, as your primary or priority, what would it be and why?
That's tough. I feel like if I don't say Twitter, then like I won't be informed on the world, and like there could be like uprisings and wars and celebrations. I wouldn't hear about any of them. I don't feel like every platform has their thing, right? Like Instagram is where I go to realize all my friends' babies are cute. Facebook's where I go to find all my friends' birthdays and make sure that any of my relatives are not being too inappropriate on the internet. Twitter's where I go to like both get morbid but also get informed, and really like there's some great quick hitting jokes on Twitter. And TikTok's where I go to smile. So I feel like if I had to pick one to use for a whole day, I'd pick TikTok. And if I had to pick one to use for a whole life, I'd say Twitter. But I love Instagram too. That's tough.
Yeah, it is really tough.
YouTube, if you want to call it in there. I love watching YouTube videos. So this is really, you can't put me on the spot like that.
No, that's a great answer. That was like a really good political answer in the sense of you gave everyone their fair due, and then ended up choosing something that fits your profile.
There's nothing I go to Instagram that I could have gone to Twitter for. I go to all of them for very different reasons.
Yeah.
TikTok is just like the thing that is the scariest about them, in that their understanding of like my interests and machine learning to make sure my For You page is tailored to me is the best thing ever. Why would I want them not to know the things that I actually like? Like, I'm not weird. I think that the greatest lesson in this is just in all these platforms, just as they get smarter, you just have to not be weird. Like, as long as you don't have some weird fetishes that you're going to like, your feed is going to be great.
Exactly. So it's like, why is it showing me all this? Well, maybe because,
just don't have secrets. Just avoid secrets. If you're into toes, cool. Don't like that content, right? Like, just be into it on your own time, like in your own head. But like, don't like that. Don't look at a video on TikTok of toes for too long, or else you're probably going to start getting served toes content.
Most definitely. And, you brought up a great topic, talk about machine learning and analytics, and, you have a spinoff, its own separate company now, Gondola.
Yeah.
Talk about that, because I just created my profile a week ago. Sorry, I'm Frugal Athlete. I'm on the free version right now until I get everything situated. Then I'll do the paid version. But talk about that as a platform, and some of the recent updates that you guys have had and accomplishments, rather.
For sure. So we launched Gondola not intending it for it to be any kind of life-changing, world-changing product. We just needed to be able to track our content at Fresh Tape, and we built it for ourselves, and we added some tools, and we were like, okay, let's add the ability to see who on our team worked on a piece of content. And then in 2 years, we can look back and find out, oh, Gabby was the producer on that, or, oh, Alana was the creative director on that shoot. And we used it on our own as Fresh Tape admin for like over a year before we were like, wait a second, if you can paste a social link into a system and find out who made it, then we've created the first system for credits for the social internet.
Yeah.
And we got to let other people use this. Like, there's a lot bigger opportunity here to have impact. Like, we know that we make a video for the NBA, and the impact is that video gets seen by millions of people, and that it creates, sort of our ethos as a company is it brings joy. We make cool stuff. The official phrase is a different word than stuff. We make cool stuff and bring joy. And like, an individual piece of content has that effect on people. But if we can change the dynamics of the social internet where creators are getting credit for their work, then that impact far out exceeds anything we could build at Fresh Tape. And we essentially built it out, rebranded Fresh Tape admin into Gondola. The idea being that like a gondola is a skiing reference. We're based in Colorado, so wanted to have a little tribute there. And the idea is a gondola, you can get to the top on your own, but it's more fun when you're with a group. So that was kind of like how we came up with the name and decided to spin it off. And we've been slowly but surely building different tools in it for the last year or so before publicly launching, so that it could be a place that creators can get credit for their work. Creators could get analytics on their content for the first time often. They could share their portfolio with people, because realistically, if you make video content for the NHL, your LinkedIn profile just shows that you worked there. Your reel probably can't include most of the work you do because you don't own it because you work for the NHL. And your personal website takes a lot of maintenance. So we built something that they can share, this portfolio tool that also gives them analytics. And then by, taking credit for work, you can show up in creator searches. So if somebody says, I want to find a animator in Denver, they can use Gondola to find that. So it's like the simplest tool of just taking credit for your work leads to, a 5-tool product that really we think has huge potential to make an impact on how creators are treated in this world.
What an amazing product. And I definitely just got to give you credit for that because, doing research, I just saw someone tweet, like, I got my first freelancing gig off my Gondola profile. And, that's just a testament of, I'm not saying that you should stop your sales outreach if you're a creator, like pitching people, but to have a profile or a portfolio or a database that has all your work and people can come in and see it, like you said, an animator in Denver, or I need a creative director in Miami. As the creator economy expands and grows, this is what it's all about. So kudos to you. And if you're an athlete, entrepreneur, or creator, definitely we're gonna have that in the show notes for sure for you guys to create your own profile.
For sure. And for athletes, for example, like Brennan Scarlett plays on the Miami Dolphins, and his account doesn't just show that he makes great content on social, but it shows who worked with him on it. So, in a world where athletes aren't able to just do it all on their own, they can show love to the people that help them along the way in a way that is bigger and more visible than just like putting them maybe in the caption. So I think it's really cool for athletes to be able to track it. And also, this is one of the features that we have is the ability to track any link, not just stuff on your own profile. So let's just say you publish a video of you doing a trick dunk. You can, and that gets published on SportsCenter and on Bleacher Report, House of Highlights, anywhere. Your Gondola profile can put it all together. So you can talk about your reach as not just I have 20,000 followers, but my content has been seen millions of times. So it's pretty exciting for what it can do for athletes to show their reach.
That's amazing. So for example, obviously, Super Bowl, you guys are part of it. There was a commercial that I think it was the Coinbase commercial. And then there was a little bit of after the fact, a bit of argument about who created it. So for example, if the Coinbase, whoever they hired as a third-party agency to handle it, the individual on that team could make that as part of their Gondola profile, and people will be able to see, who should get credit, or not who should get credit, but who was part of the job and all that stuff.
Totally. We're essentially solving this question of who made that. Which if you go on any social platform and you see the coolest videos, people are like, yo, who made this? And sometimes it's an agency, sometimes it's an individual. There was an example last year where the Raiders filmed an entrance to the game by Derek Carr, where somebody ran alongside the cheerleaders as Derek Carr came out of the tunnel. And everybody's like, who made this, right? And on Twitter, some people would respond with, it was Ricky. Hey, Ricky did it, right? But Gondola lets anybody just paste a link and say, oh, that was Ricky, right? I want to work with him. Like that, that's really cool. And as an employer, let's do it as an athlete, because that's who we're talking to. As an athlete, if you see Austin Matthews from the Toronto Maple Leafs publish a video of him, like an animated version of himself, and you're like, that is awesome. I don't think Austin knows how to use After Effects. I wonder who made this for him. You can go to Gondola and find out, and then you can say to that person, hey, I saw your awesome video that you published on Austin Matthews' account. Would you be willing to do that for me? How much does it cost?
That's what it's all about. So obviously you don't have to sell the product because it does itself justice, but if an athlete were to reach out to you, what would you say and why? I mean, what would you say about why you need to get on the Gondola platform?
I would say the first thing is to be able to measure the success of your own content. I think that being able to go in and say, my content has been seen millions of times. Will help you if you haven't got a lot of brand deals. Will help you, sell yourself as a creative that has a following, not just because you have followers, like a number of followers, but you have impact through the amount of reach that your content gets. So I would say if you're an athlete, get on there so that you can track all your content and be able to market yourself, and then let you use the platform to find creatives. If you're based in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and you play for a local team, you could see if there's any videographers in your area that you could potentially work with that have worked in sports. So I would say start by getting it for your own analytics, then go into finding creative partners that you can work with. And then it's just going to keep growing from there.
That's what it's all about. And once again, we're gonna have that in the show notes. I think you convinced me. I gotta get the full subscription, get the full services, because with what I want to do, I think Gondola makes perfect sense.
I should make like a discount code that's like a frugal athlete discount code.
Yeah, make the influencer affiliate link or something. We'll set it up offline.
Sure.
With that being said, obviously, I want to touch before we close. I want to talk to you about business. You started multiple businesses. Very successful. What are some tricks of the trade that you would recommend? Starting out after Vine, you kind of got the push and the motivation to start on your own. Talk about getting that first client, and then understanding what it takes to successfully run a business.
My strategy is not something I'd recommend to everybody, but say yes to almost everything, even if you can't do it. I think that there's this theory that you need to, learn how to say no. It's very popular to say, you got to say no to things. You need to learn how to say no. And I think that like limits a lot of opportunities. I am not a good editor. I am not a good videographer. I'm not a good photographer. There's very little creative that I'm good at. So when the NBA or MLS, our first clients, said, can you do X, or do you have ideas for X? I knew that I couldn't do them. I knew I needed to work with other people. I knew I needed to outsource. So if you feel like, hey, the thing you want to do is you want to make videos, or you want to make websites, and you aren't experienced in it, you've never made a website before, you've never made a video, great. That is not limiting at all anymore. It just means you need to find somebody to help you with it, right? Yeah. And like the old adage, like you have to spend money to make money. I think that if you know that you can pay a couple $100 for something, for a website, a video, whatever, being stingy about that, and then going and, buying a fancy dinner with all your friends, like you can, like, I think that athletes can afford to take risks when it comes to having things made for them. I think that there's an aversion to hiring people oftentimes because, like, who can you trust? And people are constantly saying that they'll do things for free. So you're like, should I really pay for somebody to make a video for me if like a million kids will be out there to do it for free? Don't be afraid to go hire some people that are really great to do some work for you. I think that's sort of like an early learning, is like, rely on your community, rely on the people, on the rest of the world. Because if you try to just do things based on what you think you're great at, you're going to miss out. And then learn how to outsource. If you start your own companies, learn how to outsource things to a team, so that you're not doing accounting if you're not good at accounting. Like, I love accounting. This may sound messed up. Like, I love spreadsheets. I love Excel. And yet I've learned I shouldn't be doing it. So now we have an ops team that does all of our financial work and does all of our analysis. And I think that just being like self-aware of like, my time is best used doing this. And I know that instead of not doing it, I just need to outsource it to the right people. I think that trusting others kind of helps out.
No, that's what it's all about. And then in terms of like scaling, obviously outsourcing is a big part of it, but how do you take that next jump? You mentioned you're the first clients, but now you guys, I see you guys at the Super Bowl. I see you guys at All-Star. I see you guys at NCAA, FBS. Like, you guys are everywhere. Talk about, what it takes to find the right team members, what it takes to take that next level of scaling, and, just build a big conglomerate.
So I think that scale starts, especially on the content side, it's very different from the engineering side. On the engineering and product side for Gondola, like there's a lot of ways you can scale in terms of product marketing, social media growth, stuff like that. I think that in terms of scale, when it comes to like a service business or like a production company, a lot of times it comes down to trusting others and building structures so that hiring people and outsourcing is not difficult. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to find a better way to phrase it. We have built structure and workflows for hiring people and whatnot so that my time or any of our account managers' times, our creative director, our head of ops, nobody is expected to do it all. And then if you build structure so that, hey, when we're booking flights, it's not the person who's going to take the videos that's also booking flights, right? It's like an office that is booking flights or sending invoices or sending contracts. Everything is, if it's operationalized so that certain people are experts in doing certain things, it's kind of like the, industrial revolution and and production lines. Like you have to, if you try to do it all, you're not going to be efficient. So as you scale, it's not necessarily hiring 20 videographers if you're a production company, because that just means you have a bunch of people that can make videos. It's hiring an ops person, hiring a creative director, hiring one editor, and making sure that those people can then go, specialize in what they do and then scale out any work that they don't have capacity for it to outside sources. And then all of a sudden you're just taking on more projects. And like some people will say the only way to scale is by charging more money or taking only big clients. I mean, I think that if you take on the right clients, the best clients may not be the $2 million commercial. It could be the $20,000 awesome brand campaign.
Yeah, I love that. And then last question before I let you go, from a money management perspective, what's one piece of advice that you have as it pertains to, building businesses, being successful and, thinking long-term?
For sure. I have one piece of advice that I tell a lot of people, which is nobody tells you that once you run a business, when you are the most successful, you'll have the least money, and when you're the least successful, you'll have the most money. So you kind of got to be prepared for both. Like when we are killing it at Fresh Tape, we are spending so much money and then we're waiting on invoices to get paid from our clients. So we have the least money when things are best. And then when like COVID hit and all of a sudden we got paid out for things, but like the first couple months were kind of bleak for workload. Yeah. Our cash looked great. It looked like we made more money than ever. So I would just say like have a cash reserve mindset that like, hey, when things get good, you're going to have to spend money. So be prepared for that, spending rush, and have backup systems for if you know that that's all built around, business that you are going to have in the flow, then have systems for like, okay, if I did need extra cash, where would I pull it from for this project and whatnot. Also like budgeting, like I don't think necessarily like doing big picture budgeting is always smartest, but every time you're doing any kind of project, having a great system for how you do your budgets and making them very, Excel clear and transparent for your clients is very important. If you just are doing things on PDFs and you're saying 20,000, that's what it's going to cost, then you aren't thinking strategically enough about sort of like how you should be charging for your work. So those are I think the two biggest financial things. Also, use QuickBooks. I don't know, like QuickBooks is freaking amazing. This isn't a paid ad for QuickBooks. They haven't paid me. I pay them way too much money every month, but they have automated so many systems of ours and I rely on them so heavily, and having the like automatically generated profit and loss statements, balance sheets, cash flow, like becoming sort of like, you don't need to be the accountant to be able to open your balance sheet and open your profit and loss and make judgments based off of it. So use QuickBooks. I think that's the jam.
No, definitely. That's a game changer. I'm using it with what I'm doing right now. And it's just like the simple fact of automating and, building an operating system, like you said, is major. But Jared, how can people find you if they want to connect with you? Once again, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know your schedule is very busy, but you got some exciting things in the works, and I'm happy to continue to follow your endeavors. And for people that may want to connect with you, where can they best do that?
On all the social channels, I'm Jarzod, Jarzod. It's a nickname that we don't know who gave it to me, but somebody gave it to me when I was 4, and it kind of stuck on all my, it was like my AIM account in the 90s.
Okay.
So Jarzod, and then on our business accounts, please follow Gondola. The accounts it's on Gondola, ONGONDOLA, and Fresh Tape Media. Across the board, we're both of those are our channels on socials. So follow both of them. Try Gondola, gondola.cc. I think it's going to be sort of really impactful in terms of what it can do for the world for creatives. So get on board now.
Most definitely. And thank you once again, Jared. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys check out the show notes. A lot of valuable information from Jared. Check out Fresh Tape Media. Check out Gondola. Check out his page. He has a lot of great insight, and excited for you guys to tune in. So with that being said, catch you guys later.
Thanks so much.